Hello, welcome to Drive-Thru Review number 50. Today I'm going to talk about Eaten by Zombies. I got an advanced copy there from Mayday Games. Eaten by Zombies is a 2 to 4 player game. It's a deck building game. It's sort of like a deck building 2.0, where it's got some extra mechanics on top of just the deck building aspect of it. I think the mechanics really fit with the theme. So let me just jump right into how it plays, and then I'll come back and tell you what I think. So let me just give you a quick little component breakdown, so to speak, here. This is one of the neatest boxes I've seen. It's basically like a bullet case or a bullet box. And all the cards come in this box. And you can see that they all fit in there sleeved. And they got the dividers here like so. And it's just a nice little compact box with it looks like some room there for maybe a little mini expansion or something like that. So in the game you're going to choose from one of 4 characters. Now all these decks are identical. They come with fight cards and flee cards, as well as a couple of sandwiches which will help you flee, and as well as making you draw cards. So you can choose June the housewife, Barney the policeman, Bob just the kind of everyman, and then Mary the cheerleader. So I've chosen Bob here, the everyman. So each player is going to get a starting deck of 12 cards. In this deck you're going to have 5 hide cards, which gives you a +1 to flee, and 5 fight cards, which is always a heavy stick. Now these are the same for each character, but they're just different artwork. And then I said you get a couple of sandwiches. When you play these you draw a card and you get +1 to flee. So on your turn you're going to have basically one decision before you can start playing cards. Are you going to run or are you going to fight? If you run, you can play any card that has this little traffic signal on there. And you can play any card that has that on there. And basically any card that helps you run. If you fight, you can play any card that has a stop sign on it. Now there are some cards that have both, so you could play them in either situation. And then you can also play any card that has a yield during whether you choose to fight or run. So anything with a yield can also be played. And yield signs will always usually let you draw cards. So you're going to draw 6 cards to start the game, and then the rest of it goes in your starting deck, just like any other kind of deck building game. Now the main thing you're going to be doing here is fighting and running from these zombies, and there's zombies of different levels here. You can see different types of zombies. So all the level 1s are the same zombie, so they're easily recognizable. A couple things to note on these zombie cards are, here you've got sort of its fighting ability up in the upper left with a little blood stain, and then you've got its attrition, which also acts as the flee ability, or the amount of flee points you'll need to avoid it. And those are in the bottom left here on all the zombies here. So you can see that the weaker zombies have a higher attrition, whereas the harder zombies have a lower attrition. So you're going to take a certain number of these based on the number of players, and then create a deck of zombies that you're going to turn up from every turn. And then you're going to set up all of your draw piles, the cards that you're going to be acquiring. Now in every game you're going to have a stack of good books, binoculars, and rifles, and these are just your basic sort of upgrades to your starting deck. You can see the rifle gives you +2 fight, the binoculars give you +2 flee, and this lets you draw 2 cards when you play it. And there's 5 cards in each stack. The next thing you're going to do after you get your zombies deck and your starting cards, you're going to go here and randomly pick 2 of these cards per player. So in a 4-player game you're going to have 8 other stacks of cards. And these are other cards that you're going to be able to acquire and purchase, and the game is called Find or Scavenge. So these have a whole myriad variety of effects, different guns, different, like this one's up a tree, helps you run faster, and there's different effects based on all of these. And some of these will let you choose effects, like you got Grandpa's Shed, you got Grandma's Pantry. This is a fun one here, a good friend. It lets you actually steal cards from other players' discard piles, but you have to give it back, or you have to discard your good friend card. A lot of fun little cards in here. I just wanted to show you this card. It's I think you have to pre-order it or have kickstarted it to get this card, but we have the bomb card, and you put this in the zombie deck, and then you actually will use these as one of the cards that you can purchase. And this is really kind of a fun little alternative way to play. It kind of throws the game into a lot of chaos, but it's still pretty fun. It basically explodes. Everybody loses a bunch of cards. You lose cards from the draw piles, and the zombie piles get depleted a little bit. But it's a fun little, hilarious sort of variant to play with. It's pretty fun. So here I've got a 2-player game set up. So you've got your 3 starting basic cards, 2 cards per player, so a total of 7 draw piles, and then you've got your zombie deck. And so I'm just going to be playing as the Bob player here for right now to show you how to play. So you're going to draw 6 cards, you have 6 cards in your hand, and then at the start of every player's turn, they're going to draw 1 card from the zombie deck. So in this case I've got this little zombie girl here. She's got a fight power 4 and an attrition value of 2 at the bottom there. So now I can take a look at my cards in my hand and say, okay, what do I want to do? Do I want to fight her or do I want to flee? I've got to decide that before I do anything. So let's say in this case, I'm going to be a bit of a wuss here and I'm going to run. So that means I've got to play only flee cards. Well, in this case I've got 3 flee cards. So I need at least 2 flee to beat that attrition. So I can play more than I need to, and you're going to see why I do that in a second. So I'm going to play these 3. So that means I've fled her, she's going to get discarded, and now I've got 3 points worth of stuff, however many flee I've spent, to buy things. So I could go maybe buy a crowbar. Well, here's the trick, is whatever you buy goes right into your hand. So the next turn I know I got some fight cards to use, so I can buy something that's going to help me right on my next turn. Now I'm stuck with these cards in my hand until you have to use them. So it's kind of a little trick of balancing between what you're going to play now and what you're going to play later. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I've got 5 and I draw back up to 6. But before I do that, before I draw, I have to lose some cards, because every time you flee, you have to lose some cards at least. Now since I succeeded, I only have to lose half of this number here. Now you can lose cards from your hand, the cards that you just discarded, any cards that might be in your discard pile, you can pick and choose. So I'm going to get rid of maybe one of these flee cards here and just get rid of that. And it goes and makes its own stack here. So if later on I can go and buy this, or an opponent can go and buy this and add to their hand. Now if I had failed to flee, if I'd chosen to flee but I didn't have enough flee cards, I could play whatever I could, but then I don't get to buy anything. If you don't succeed in fleeing or fighting, you can't buy anything. And the trick is, if I failed to flee, then I'd have to lose 2 cards from my deck. So you want to try to succeed. You don't want to lose cards, because as soon as you lose all the cards in your deck, or you can't draw back up to 6 cards in your hand, then you turn into a zombie. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. But in a 2-player game, the first person out, basically the other guy wins. But in a 3 or 4 person game, if you're the first person out, then you turn into a zombie and you get a whole new set of actions. The next thing I could have done is fight this zombie. So and then I need to play 4 worth of fighting. So let's say I had in my hand this crowbar and these 2 heavy sticks. So I've only got 3 fighting. I can't beat her yet. So what I can do is I can play one of these sandwiches. Even though it's a flee card, I can still play it because it's got the draw symbol. So I play that, and I draw a card, and there we go. There's my other stick. And so now I've got my 4 fighting. So I've beaten this zombie now. Now if I had failed to beat her and I had chosen fighting, I would have to lose all 2 cards again. But since I've fought her and beat her, she's actually going to go into my discard pile. So now I've got a zombie in my deck, which is a good and a bad thing, and I'll explain that in a minute. But there's another little icon on these cards here, and that's the scavenge ability here. So scavenge adds to your points to buy. So I paid 4 points worth of fighting to beat her, so I've got 4 points to buy. But now I can add another +2 since I succeeded, so I've got 6 points worth of buying. So I'll maybe grab this shotgun here, which lets me draw a card and give me +2 to fight. Now right away you can see these cards are real basic, and these are part of the first game setup. And I definitely recommend playing this the first couple of times, because it's a little bit like turning like Dominion on its ear. There's a lot more to managing a hand and what you're going to play, and holding cards back, or waiting to play them and that kind of thing. And so if you jump right in and add the complexity to the other cards, I think people will, even experienced gamers, need I think a game or 2 just to get out of the habit, so to speak, of Dominion. Like one thing that I still do, and I don't do as much as I did when I first started, is when I buy a card, I just put it in my discard pile. Well, no, it goes right to your hand. That's a very key part of the game. So just keep that in mind. So now I've taken my turn, I beat the zombie, and it's the next player's turn. So they're going to flip up a zombie card here. Now, she's still in my discard pile, but if I had drawn her on a later turn, now players have the opportunity to go and add a zombie to the stack of zombies that the other player has to defeat. So let's take a look at how that works. So in the case of attacking the zombies, you can actually attack them individually. So you can see this needs a total of 8 attack to beat them. But you could theoretically attack her with 4 strength, and then she'll go to your discard pile, and then maybe fail on her. So at the end of the turn, you're only going to lose 2 cards. Now, if you chose fighting and you hadn't managed to defeat either one of them, you'd have to lose a total of 4 cards there. So you can you defeat them right to left. So that the newest zombie out there, you've got to defeat them in this certain order, and that's a key point of the game. Now, if you had chosen to run from this group of zombies, you've got to beat all of the attrition total at one time. There's no like running from each and every one individually like there is with attacking. So I'd have to play 4 flee. Now, if I was able to succeed at fleeing, then I've got to take, like before, I've got to take the total attrition value and halve it, and I still have to lose 2 cards. You've got to always lose cards when you flee. And sometimes that's good. You can set yourself up to lose cards you don't want. And so it's kind of a, like I said before, balancing act between, getting zombies in your deck, losing some bad cards. But remember, if you lose all the cards, you turn into a zombie. So there's a real kind of trick to balancing the game. And there's some subtleness to that. So let's say I had fled from these zombies, and so I only have to lose 2 cards because half of 4 is 2. Now, normally if I had failed to flee, then all of these zombies would go to the discard pile. But when you succeed in fleeing, and this is another key little aspect, only this bottom zombie gets discarded. All the other zombies will stay for the next player to have to defeat. So that's another little balancing act as well, of leaving stuff for your quote-unquote buddies to have to deal with. So that is simply sort of the game in a nutshell. You're going to draw a zombie out, you're going to have to either flee or fight it. But players, before you choose that, players are going to get the opportunity to add zombies to the pile, so it could be worse for you than you expect. You're going to keep playing until players start to drop out and become zombies. Now, when you go through this first zombie deck here, and then you need to reshuffle it to make it again, instead of drawing 1 zombie per turn, then you're going to draw 2 zombies per turn. And if you go through it again, you're going to have to draw 3 zombies per turn. So the horde of zombies is going to ever get closer and closer and closer to ruining the game. So I really like that aspect of it. It really fits the theme well. It makes the game sort of arc up in pressure and escalate. So the one thing you got to be prepared for is you are going to lose cards in the game. You're not going to go the whole game and never lose cards. So there's a couple ways to win and lose the game. First of all, if you ever deplete the zombie deck so that you can't refill it, so if let's say you're on the 3rd round of the deck, you only had 2 cards left in the zombie deck, everybody else had acquired zombies and filled up their own deck, and you go to draw 3 cards and there's only 2, well then it's basically been depleted, and then basically all of the players win. But there will be a winner. Everybody counts all the cards in their deck. Whoever has the most cards in their deck is the winner. So that seems to be, to me, the most common way to win the game. The next thing is if you are the last human alive. So if somebody goes to draw 6 cards, or maybe they play a draw card and they can't, there's no card for them to draw, they immediately turn into a zombie. Pretend it's a 3-player game. If 2 people do that, then the only guy left as a human immediately becomes the winner. So that's another way to win. Now, there is a way for anybody that's become a zombie during the game for them to win. If ever on a single player's turn, they draw all zombie cards and they can't play any cards out of their hand because their hand's full of zombies, then all of the zombies win. So it's possible for, even though you've gone out as a zombie, to actually still win the game. In that case, you win the game collectively as a group of zombies. So speaking of zombies, what do you get to do on your zombie turn? Well, each of the character cards has a little sort of turn summary on the one side, and then on the other side it has a sort of a cheat sheet for what's called the zombie threat zone. So on the zombie's turn, they get to choose to draw 1 to 4 cards from the zombie deck over here. And they have to at least choose 1, but they don't have to draw 4. And the reason it gives you the choice is, remember, when the zombie deck is depleted and you can't refill it, then the players win. So as a zombie, you need to be careful about drawing these. So you're going to draw at least one of these cards, and then you have to play at least 1. And what you're going to do is you're going to create a separate pile here of zombie cards called the zombie threat zone. So here I've got a zombie threat zone with already 2 cards in it. You can only ever have 3 cards in it at a time. So if on my turn I added this one, then this zone would have a 2, 4, and an 8, and then if somebody else came in to add a 4th card, it would go here, and then this bottom one would drop out. You can only have 3 cards. So what happens in the zombie threat is you take each of these 4, the 8, and the 2 there, and then the 4 effect here, the 8 effect, and then the 2 effect will all be in play. So in this case, the 8 is survivors may not add zombies to the horde. So they're stuck with those cards in their hand. And then, for example, if you have the 1 here, zombies or survivors must discard 2 swag cards, and those are the cards you acquire, the swag cards, from their hand before drawing at the end of the turn. So all 3 of these effects are going to be in play during the game now. So that makes the game, because the zombies don't have a lot of power, but they can kind of pick and choose what effects are going to be in play on the player's turn. So as a zombie, you're going to draw 1 card, maybe 4, and then you're going to play 1 to the threat zone. And then you can keep the some cards from your hand, or you can get rid of some and put it back in the deck if you feel like the zombie deck's going to run out. And then you can keep these and play these against opponents on their turn, just as you would when you're a survivor. When they draw the zombie card out, then you can add 1 of these to them. I hope you enjoyed the overview. This is a fun game. I quite like this game. It did take a game or 2 for my group to get their head around, just because we played so much of the other deck building games. But the parts that I really like about it are the choices that you're going to make with the cards that you have in your hand are not always obvious. I think after you play the game quite a bit, you're going to want to upgrade and play with just a random smattering of cards and see how having a bunch of flea cards is going to work and how that type of game will work versus if there's a bunch of guns and ammo and stuff. So in that aspect, it kind of reminds me of Dominion, where you kind of set up a little environment and sort of a puzzle for you to figure out, okay, what's the optimal stuff to buy. But beyond just that part of it, it has sort of the balance between fleeing and fighting, and what cards do you keep for the next turn and things like that. So I like that aspect of it. And the theme really fits with sort of the mechanics of it, is everybody's kind of out for themselves. I like it when somebody turns into a zombie, they have some things they can still do to keep themselves in the game and sort of laugh and stuff. And the art is real thematic, where it's got sort of the famous Americana imagery, but sort of distorted and turned into a zombie, zombified or whatever. So everything really kind of fits really well. And anyway, it's a great game. Like I like the nuclear bomb little aspect. That's just a fun little addition where players can just have a good time. And so it sort of leans to that thematic fun time versus the strategic side, the pure strategy side of me. And but I think there's still strategy. It's just not real, heaped on. But there is some